What's going on, guys? Bullish 290 coming at you with another NFL kind of reaction thing, recap over Week 13. It was an interesting week, to say the least. Gabe and I predicted the games on his video, so check that out and then come back here or whatever you guys want to do. I'm not your boss, but anyway, we'll jump right into it. So we're gonna go tonight's game since it just happened, and I don't know if you watched
I was
any of
wanting to
it.
say, I don't think I didn't keep track this week on who won. I guess we'll just have to run through it and see what we picked, see what we got right.
I don't think we had a lot of disagreements. I think you might have won because I remember I picked the Cardinals versus the Rams. I picked the Cardinals.
Yeah, and I picked the Rams just because I was like, they're such a random team. I think they're gonna fall on their good side this week. And they ended up falling on a very good side. We want to start with tonight?
Yeah. Okay. So, the Ravens ended up beating the Cowboys 34-17 to improve to 7-5. But they still have a couple of weeks to see if they can sneak into a wild card spot. Or maybe if some twist of fate happens, they can slip into leading the division with the Steelers if they lose any more games or not. And we'll talk about that game later. But for the Ravens, you get Lamar Jackson back, and they do what they do best. They run the ball all over the Cowboys, and the Cowboys just didn't have an answer. Obviously, didn't see a lot of throwing from Lamar, and a couple, there were
107 yards in total.
Yeah, and he's still the big thing on Lamar is the accuracy, but you did see a couple accurate passes today or tonight. So Cowboys are also just disappointing. Even when they did have Dak, it's just. You bring in this offensive-minded coach, right? And you already have, a pretty good offensive coordinator. It's not like you guys did extremely bad last year. And,
Kellen Moore he knew what he was doing with Dak. He handled the system very well.
Yeah, and even with Dak having a massive amount of passing yards, he was still beating out, quarterbacks for passing yards well after his injury, but it still didn't matter because they never really got off to a good start. I think they only won one game with Dak, and it was the Falcons game, and it just
probably shouldn't have won.
Yeah, due to the onside kick confusion, the Cowboys ended up winning with a field goal by Greg the Leg Zuerlein, who also kind of struggled tonight, but. If I'm Dallas, right, you look at Mike McCarthy and you look at everything you have right now, do you think about maybe this offseason, admit to your mistake that you kind of, Mike McCarthy isn't going to work out well?
Yeah. I mean, okay, so I don't think that's a horrible idea, but also, there's the argument that, okay, these are the same players who also said that Jason Garrett wasn't working for them, and they couldn't get him, same players. So at some point, I think these players need to start taking some accountability for what's going on, because I understand that you don't have your starting quarterback, but there's such a lack of not just effort but urgency. It feels like there's no urgency, there's no belief in that team anymore. Ever since the Minnesota game was the one true form of okay, these guys came to play and they want to win tonight. But when they played against Washington, it was so after the first couple of drives, it was just effortless from Dallas. And now this game was more of the same. It just a lot of effortless play, not a lot of heart. And I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility for Jerry Jones. He's a very not I don't know what the word is for him in this situation. He makes very irrational decisions at times because he jumps quickly off and on of bandwagons at times. He seems like he goes with a hot hand at times.
Yeah, and
And so it would not shock me at all if he's like, "Oh, this didn't work. I'm gonna go move off Mike McCarthy." But it also wouldn't shock me if he would also sit there and think like, "Well, I wonder what would happen if he had a full year of Dak, because even when we were losing, we had an amazing offense, and if we can work on the defense this season, what can we get?" So I'm interested to see what they do. In my opinion, I'd say don't fire him because of how the injuries have worked out, and we know Mike McCarthy is at least a decent coach. Like I'm not saying I think we all realize he's not a scrub of a coach. It's just they've had a lot of struggles and they need to redo their culture, and I think they can still do some of this, fix that even without Mike McCarthy, with keeping Mike McCarthy.
yeah, and if I feel like if they do go that route of, letting Mike McCarthy go, looking for a new head coach, I don't think they should go for an offensive-minded head coach. I think they should go for a defensive head coach because their number one
Robert
problem.
Saleh?
Yeah, even though right now, there's a lot of lobbying going for him going to the Lions. Obviously, it's still his decision. If you
Well,
can
I
get,
mean, I think a lot of it right now is that's why I think he's getting that most attention because that's the team right now that is deep in the hunt because, uh, you know, uh, like the Texans, I don't think they're going to search for a defensive minded. They want an
yeah,
offensive minded head coach, and they want someone, and as we said, Eric Bieniemy, he seems like he might be the guy. I would be like, I don't want him to go. I don't. I want him to stay around. But it's his, if he wants to be a head coach, he should go do that. And I think that would be a good shot with a person like Deshaun Watson at the helm as your quarterback. It's a great situation to come into.
and then yeah, us Chiefs fans, we talk about it a lot. Like we hear a lot about it. Eric Bieniemy, how, we heard a lot about it. Over the off season about him getting a head coaching job. Ultimately, didn't get one. Came back to be offensive coordinator. I don't see how he wouldn't get one this off season. But we also hear from the Texans that they might want to keep Romeo Crennel for another year, and
I didn't obviously I didn't call that, but I also did say last week that I said it in our last video. Romeo Cromartie is doing a good job. It's like I think if their center makes a good snap, they most likely beat the Indianapolis Colts because they'll be leading with I think only about 40 seconds left.
Yeah, it was a really close game, but we hear a
been
lot about Eric Bieniemy and then also Atlanta. If me as a Chiefs fan, I want to see Eric Bieniemy go to a place where the future's brighter, and Deshaun having a stable franchise quarterback like Deshaun Watson still there, and you hear a lot of the smoke coming out of Atlanta that they could be ready to trade anyone out this offseason. We heard the rumors of Julio Jones over before the trade deadline.
now the ice might not be there next year.
Yeah, so just kind of the future being up for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
If I was Eric Bieniemy, I would choose to go.
Another coaching position I would be very surprised not as open is the one down in Jacksonville.
Yeah, Doug Marrone is operating off borrowed time, so we'll have to see. I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of comes with the new quarterback change that I feel like is going to happen. Nothing against Gardner Minshew, but this is the same organization that just can't. They're kind of like Jerry Jones, as you put it earlier. Is they like to ride the hot hand, and Gardner Minshew hasn't played in a while.
Yeah, they're still sick. Now, so here's what I was wondering because you told me, I think it was on Sun. It was either on Sunday or it's not too long after that. After the Jaguar loss, they're gonna stay with Mike Glennon. My question is, Minshew's still injured, right? Because I haven't kept much on track with him. He must be still injured, or are they actually saying we're going to put Glennon in over Minshew?
I I honestly don't. I think that Minshew is still injured, but I haven't really heard anything about Minshew in a while. I've been trying to keep up. I've not heard anything
Yeah,
um,
me neither.
out
His
of
injury has
Jacksonville
been,
about Minshew.
yeah.
So
But one name that got tossed around, one name that's getting tossed around right now in the coaching tree, and we'll probably get to it later, is Jim Harbaugh. But one guy I do want to talk about, and this came out of so this guy was considered for the Jaguars coaching job a while ago. It was like 2010 or so, and he also at one point was considered a Chief. He was even like this was also a while ago, but a Chiefs candidate, Midwest guy, coaching college football. But his name got thrown back into the fire. I saw a couple of Big Ten networks talking about it, about Kirk Ferentz, the Iowa head coach, thinking about and maybe a stint in the NFL. But I don't know how much of that the validity is of that, because Kirk Ferentz is he's been with Iowa for so long that I don't know why he would decide now to leave.
yeah, but that all being said, we'll move on to some other games. We have an NFC South battle between the Saints and the Falcons. A lot closer than I thought, but the Saints still come out the win. They clinch their playoff berth. The first team on Sunday to clinch their playoff berth, along with the Chiefs, the two only teams that have clinched uh, their playoff berths. You know,
Yeah.
I honestly don't think that anyone was really expecting this game to be as close. But you don't know what
This
else to expect. So
well, my thing was, yeah, it was close on paper, but the Falcons needed a Hail Mary to make it seem close, and I understand the came out of the final drive, but the Saints controlled this game. It just there was a little bit of mistakes. I thought the fumble call on Taysom Hill was absolute garbage, because you look at it, his hands going forward, and anyone who doesn't I don't know what to say. Like the inconsistency in that rule is so horrible, because his hands going forward, it's obvious because he basically spiked it off the ground trying to get out of it. They still called it a fumble. It sparked some momentum for Atlanta, but even then they still can't get it done. The Saints defense, it's playing at probably one of the highest levels it can. It's doing it at the right time where Taysom Hill is starting, and Taysom Hill's done a great job.
yeah,
I was not a fan of him after his contract. I still think they may have overpaid him.
yeah, I
Maybe
remember that
overpaid
conversation.
him. And I mean, I don't know what to think about him, but he's done a great job in his position. Even whenever they started him, there was a lot of people who hated that they weren't going to go with Jameis Winston. But credit to Sean Payton. He knew what he was doing. And Taysom Hill is what 3-0 as starter now.
I believe so, but I remember we talked about this last year. I'm pretty sure, because it's when
During the off season.
yeah, it's when all the rumors and all that stuff started to come out that Taysom Hill wanted to be paid, or he wanted to go to a place where he'd be paid and be a starting quarterback. And I remember us having that conversation of he'll never be a starting quarterback, and he doesn't really deserve to get paid a lot because he hasn't done that much.
Look, okay,
I don't fault you on that, because
I do want to preface it with this. I don't know, okay, the Saints might be the only organization that will start him.
yeah,
Because I don't think many teams right now will go out there and be like, oh, we need to trade for the 30-year-old the Swiss Army knife quarterback who, is definitely limited but can, under Sean Payton's system, win some games. I think some of it's the Taysom, a lot of it is the fact that he's sitting behind. I think we can't ignore the fact that the elite level the Saints defense is playing at.
yeah,
But, credit to Taysom Hill, he's done well. And if Drew Brees leaves soon, he could get a starting job in New Orleans, but I don't know if any other team will take him for a starting job.
yeah. just a weird little thing going on in New Orleans. But anyway, moving on, we'll talk about the Dolphins and Bengals next. And I remember we had a conversation about this one, and you know, you asked, you said, "Oh, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick is starting this game." And if
And
he
it
wasn't,
looked like
and
he
if he
was until
wasn't,
Sunday morning.
and I remember you said, "Well, if he isn't, then I'm betting against the Dolphins because Tua, I'll always bet against Tua." And yet again,
Okay.
Tua,
Now, okay.
it's
All
4 and
right.
1. Tua
Okay.
is.
All right. Let me. I don't want to go too much into detail about this game because I
Is
thought
it
this
is
was
it
a
your
pretty.
turn?
I'll go and say this. Well done, Tua. I mean, I don't know how like that was just a weird game. I mean, the Bengals defense played weird. Like they had its moments where they played kind of hot and they were stopping you, but their offense couldn't answer because Joe Burrow, who I still think better than Tua. You're not gonna get me to say that because Joe Burrow, I will not back off that argument. That's never gonna. But whenever Tua plays mediocre teams that can't rush the passer, yeah, he can beat them. That's exactly what the Bengals are. They are a bad team that can't rush the passer, and he beat them. So I can't argue with that fact. He beat the Cincinnati Bengals, but I also think Ryan Fitzpatrick would have done the exact same thing. And but yeah, but the Miami Dolphins are going to start hitting a brutal schedule, and this isn't as much to a hate as it is just looking at the schedule and the teams they have to face. I don't see a playoff spot in the road of Tua.
Well, this next game, this is just a mess to look at.
Okay,
Um,
go ahead.
So, I think this was the only game that we thought that the Jets might have won, and they had it. They had the win. They had the win.
Right in their freaking hands.
Less than 13 seconds left, and the one, you know, the play that got defensive coordinator Greg Williams fired this morning is in the last waning seconds of this game, Derek Carr throws it up. You know, I used to knock on Derek Carr because he didn't really throw the ball deep all that much, and when he did, he'd overthrow his receivers. But you know, lately he's been pretty accurate, and he was right on the dime to Henry Ruggs, the speedster, down the sideline, and you know, they score and they take the lead. And the Jets are still a winless team, and it's looking like it's going to stay that way. They want to join a special club of 0-16 teams with the Lions and the Browns. So,
I mean, yeah, and it was a similar pass to what he attempted for Carr. It was a similar pass to what he attempted against us on that final play that got intercepted. The only problem was the Jets tried to blitz him. Now, okay,
they rushed 8, I think, is what.
Here's a little tip. I know I'm no NFL genius here, and I couldn't coach or even coordinate an entire game of football. But when there's 7 seconds left in a game, and the team has to drive about 60 yards, here's a little tip for you, Greg Williams. Maybe just play prevent defense, because oh my god, are you kidding me, man? Like, I thought they had it. I thought they did it. And I think if they would have done that, and after the Chiefs won, I think the division would have been clinched for us. But no, you couldn't do it because Greg Williams is just obsessed with the blitz. And I don't know, like, yeah, firing some seemed in order. I mean, you can't do that. You can't blitz on a prevent defense play.
Here's another thing that I was kind of shocked to hear was, you know, like, a lot of people, even like Marcus May and a lot of the Jets players were upset about this. And, like, no, I've heard it a lot, with podcasts have former players and stuff. You don't want to be a winless team. You don't want to be known as like the tanking team. You want to go out and win the game. And as Herm Edwards says, you play to win the game.
To win the games.
Uh, you know, yeah, Greg Williams deserves to be fired, but there is another person that deserves to be fired in this situation, and it's your head coach, Adam Gase. He is also part of the reason why you're a winless team. Now, I'm not saying that he was the reason why you guys lost the game, but he's the reason why you don't have a win.
Here's the reason why the Jets GM will not fire him. He is fine with sitting there and being like, yeah, the defensive coordinator made a horrible decision that lost us the game. You know what he's not willing to say? Yeah, I hired the wrong guy, and Adam Gase doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't want to go out there and do that, because that would open himself up for criticism. But what he can do is go, yeah, this defensive coordinator was stupid and did dumb stuff, and he's completely lost what his full strength killed him, so we're gonna fire him. It's fine to lose off the head of a defensive coordinator, but his ego won't allow him to admit that he was wrong about Adam Gase.
Well, on to the next game after that disappointment. It's another close game that had to go in overtime. The Jaguars-Vikings, and I was watching this game, I was like, Jags, just stop trying. Like, the Jets are winning. And, that, like, it was before, obviously, everything happened. But, the Jets are winning. This is your chance to get, go for Trevor Lawrence. You don't have to settle for Fields. You can go for it all. And, yeah, they go into overtime, and Joe Schobert, pretty sure, got an interception, and then the Jags just absolutely sucked and gave the ball back to the Vikings. And the Vikings didn't really have all that good of a game,
but they had snuck into the 7 seed.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy to think about, but it probably helps that the Bears lost also. To the Lions. We'll talk about that. I'll talk about that later.
I loved that game, man. I loved it. It was awesome. Every part of me loved that game.
So yeah, just a weird game by the Vikings. So next up, Colts and Texans. We talked about this. We touched on it earlier. But this game. This was the first 100-yard game for T.Y. Hilton since 2018, which was when Andrew Luck was quarterback.
Of course, it's the week I decided to sit him down and play Josh Reynolds. He scored 3.1. 3.1. And meanwhile, T.Y.'s sitting on my bench with 25 points, and I'm like, yeah, thanks, T.Y. I'm going to be starting him next week, though, and he will probably put up like 7 points. So. And it's playoff time there, so, fun time with T.Y.
Yeah, he hasn't had a 100-yard game, which is really, crazy to think about, since he's been the Colts' #1 receiver, and now he's kind of, he's dropping down to, like, sort of, he used to be, like, an elite receiver, and now he's just kind of, like, average. You have a decent wide receiver core now, which...
Yeah, to be fair to the guy, last year he was working with Jacoby Brissett, and this year he's worked with an offensive system that is based on spreading the ball.
But, just not the same production we've seen before.
No.
So, the Colts obviously won, barely edged out the Texans, which is kind of weird to think about since the Texans haven't really done much all this year. They were, they could have taken the game, obviously, like you said earlier. But
it wasn't for the bum of a center they have.
And, it's not like the Texans are winning or losing for anything. Like, they're losing just to give the Dolphins a better draft pick, and, they've been trying to build to win now, and it's just not working well for them, obviously, because they had a stooge up there making GM
Okay,
picks.
calm down. Calm down, man.
What?
I don't want to get into I don't want to get into that situation. There was a lot more to that situation than just Bill O'Brien was bad at his job. That was a lot more there, but I don't want to get into that because that could cause a whole new argument.
All right. Well, on to the next game. A big upset, and we talked about this, and we said this team needed a win for us to make them feel like they are real, for them to make us feel like they're an actual playoff contender, playoff team. And that is the
Mm-hmm.
Browns versus the Titans. The Browns were well in control for most of the game, even though it does look close, uh, obviously on the box score and stuff like that. But you know,
They jumped out to a 38-7 lead at at the end of the first half.
yeah, which is crazy to think because the Browns haven't really, like we talk about this, that they haven't really played a lot of good teams, except the
And the good
Steelers
teams
and the
they have
Ravens.
played,
Yeah,
they
and
got
they've lost.
destroyed.
Yeah, so for them to play the Titans, and go out and win, hold Derrick Henry to under 100 yards and a fumble is pretty good, like pretty crazy. Baker Mayfield played it out of his mind, um, and you know, if you can obviously, a lot of people are going to chalk some of that up to the Titans don't really have a pass rush, but
All right, here's the thing. That was one of the arguments I said. I was like, well, he was like, of course they should have won. The whole thing about beating Baker Mayfield is, you got to rush him, and they don't have passes. It's like, okay, well, you said before the game though that this is a must-win and that this was a big game in Baker Mayfield's career. Yeah, but now that he actually won it, now the narrative is switched to, well, he should have won it.
yeah.
So
So
like, it's to me, I've I hate not like rooting for the Browns because I think the NFL would be is a much more fun place when a team that like the perennial losers like the Browns come out and win games. I think it's a more like an interesting league.
yeah,
But yeah, like I didn't believe in them. I thought the Titans were just gonna be more physical than them. I thought the I don't think the pass rush was going to get to him, but I thought that the secondary was going to pick off Baker Mayfield a couple times. Baker played really well. He protected the ball. Threw 4 touchdowns. That was impressive. Probably his best performance in his career in the NFL. And he's taken Believeland. I mean, it's straight Believeland now because they look like a legit playoff team now.
yeah. Well, on to the next game that I kind of highlighted, the Lions-Bears game. Now, we saw the matchup week 1, and we both said that the Lions should have won, which they should have. And
Yep, they should have.
the rematch, they take it this time, and they don't get swept in their series. So I'll let you talk about this one.
Okay, so this was a game that so the Bears were in the control of this game for about 3/4
Yeah.
in about 12 minutes. About that. They were in control for about that long. But but the Lions were just kind of keeping up. They were in the back, but it just felt like they couldn't catch up. They scored a touchdown. I think it was to T.J. Hawkinson. That made it 27-30. And then it was like the Bears were like, okay, just run out the clock. Maybe you can get another score, but we need to run out the clock. Their defense hasn't stopped us all game, and we're good. We're moving. We're gonna get this win. Then a fumble happens, and it was like the biggest punch in the gut because the Bears fans were like, you never felt like they were gonna lose that game, and then in 1 second, and in 1 minute, everything changed. And Mitchell Trubisky almost led him to a game-winning drive, but he just wasn't in the cards. And the Bears are now dead in the water.
Yeah. and it's it's crazy to think about because like I remember watching some of the game and I was like, yeah, I don't think there's a way the Lions can come back. Like it just doesn't feel like there's any
Playing well enough.
momentum
Their
going their
defense
way.
isn't. Yeah, their defense wasn't doing enough. And you know what this craziest thing was? If they win that game, despite all these horrible things that have happened for their season, if they win this game, they're tied for the 7th seed. And it's just like, okay, there's still hope. They don't have that hard of a closing schedule, and they're tied for a playoff berth. That's not bad. Now, they are just so due. Even now that they're only one game behind a playoff spot, it just looks hopeless. Their team has played horribly.
And we talked about this before, and I remember I saw something about it. Uh, I saw something that maybe the Bears will clear house after the season, and for that I have to say, I understand Matt Nagy has not lived up to his expectations since his first year.
Yeah.
But that's when he had a really, and we talked about it, a decent quarterback. Like Mitchell Trubisky wasn't, as bad. He wasn't playing as bad.
Mitchell Trubisky greatly digressed in
Yeah.
his play.
And
that was a sad thing because he was doing a good job at what the Bears were good at was forcing turnovers and flipping the field.
yeah.
They have not been able to get those turnovers. They need to flip that field, and it greatly shows.
So
And, we thought maybe it was like, Nick Foles came in and it really rejuvenated stuff. The offense wasn't explosive, but it was efficient enough to get the wins. It's no longer efficient enough. It's so bad.
Yeah. And, for the whole clearing the house thing, I'm fine, with Ryan Pace, the GM,
Ryan Pace needs to go.
yeah.
Ryan Pace needs to go. He will, as long as he's in that locker room, the monkey on the back of, you didn't draft Patrick Mahomes. No matter how, I understand that it's like, it would have been a huge reach. I understand it would have been a huge reach, and it's hindsight stuff. But no matter what you say, that's going to be living over. You're going to be living that over yourself, even though you did greatly reach. You could consider that you greatly reached for Mitchell Trubisky.
And you look at, the drafts that they've had since that. Like, they drafted their highest pick this year was tight end Cole Kmet, and he hasn't really done much. You look at
his first touchdown of the year last in his game.
But you look at some of the other players that they could have had, and same thing goes with last year. Like they've missed, and a lot of teams have missed on great talent, but they've drafted for positions that they don't need.
They've drafted for positions that aren't game changing on a football field. Like if you strike, even if Cole Kmet ended up being a superstar, he wouldn't fix your issues.
Yeah.
He would not fix your issues. That would not help your situation because your offense is just so one-dimensional.
But it's just, if anyone needs to go, it's Ryan Pace. You give Matt Nagy another year, try to get him a decent quarterback. Because if you give him a decent quarterback, he has a good chance of, even in this tough NFC North division, he can still give you a chance to get to the playoffs, especially now with the new with the new rules and everything. He did it his first year. Just give him another chance.
Right before we move on, I do want to say, I know we make fun of Mitchell Trubisky a bunch, and I know he's not helped the situation at all, but I do feel kind of bad for the kid because, it's not like he asked to be the number 2 pick. It's not like he asked to be drafted over 2 generational talents in Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
He has been, and it's not like, as I said, Ryan Pace has not exactly helped his case by giving him, the opportunity. And, after these last couple of games, I think that lost to the Detroit Lions, I don't believe we will ever see Mitchell Trubisky as a full-time starter again in this league.
Yeah.
I can comfortably say that. Go. I could maybe think, oh, what if he just starts, playing well again? He starts, being a game manager, and he comes in as like, an Alex Smith, or maybe even a journeyman like Ryan Fitzpatrick, who can start for teams. But I don't even know if he's that anymore. I think I'd take Ryan Fitzpatrick over him if I wanted just a year of good play.
Yeah, Mitchell Trubisky just hasn't really done much since Matt Nagy's first year coaching. He's kind of fell off, but moving on. Yeah, moving on. Another division battle, the Rams-Cardinals game. The Rams are like we said earlier in the year that we didn't think the Rams were real, and
I still don't know if they're real. I still don't know.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to get a gauge because they beat a good team like Tampa Bay and
Okay, so they have went out and they beat Tampa Bay. They went out and they beat the Bears, who at the time were 5-1.
Yeah.
They went out and they beat the Cardinals. They went out and beat the Seahawks. But then they've lost 2 times to the 49ers, and they've nearly lost to the Giants. And then, they've just not. They got beaten by the Bills, another talented team, but it's like, what are they?
And they got beat by the Dolphins too.
They got beaten by the Dolphins by like 10 points, wasn't it?
I think it was more than that.
Maybe more.
Either way, it felt like that game felt like the Dolphins definitely dominated the Rams in that.
The defense did definitely. Jared Goff, I think, had like 5 turnovers. But yeah, they are such a hard team to get a gauge on. But I don't want to focus much on the Rams, because I think we are all like, okay, yeah, they're a playoff team.
Yeah.
They're a little hard to read, but they're a talented team. I want to focus on what has happened
to the Cardinals.
Now, what has happened to these guys?
I think they still have a shot to get into the playoffs.
They're tied. They're 6-6 with the Vikings. I think the only reason they're not in is because of their division record.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals definitely have everything to be in the playoffs. They just have to put it together and get some of these, they have to win out for the rest of these games. The Cardinals, they have a, we kind of criticized the Cliff Kingsbury hire, but now he's starting to look a little bit better with Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray is day and night in some games, but he's been getting a little bit more consistent. And
DeAndre Hopkins is always going to be a star.
Yeah.
But my concern with them is, okay, one, their defense is atrocious, and I have given up on the Buda Baker for Defensive Player of the Year, because he has done nothing since that big game in Seattle, where his plays kind of, were the big difference in why they won that big game against Seattle.
Yeah. Ever
since then, he has been getting toasted. He's been getting, barbecued. He's been barbecued chicken for offenses, and I can't defend him anymore. But yeah, and they're a concerning team right now. And I just want to drop this in because we brought up the Vikings. Did you know that the Vikings' last divisional loss was in Week 1? They haven't lost a divisional game. They have not lost a divisional game since then. They played the Packers and beat them. They played the Bears and beat them. They played the Lions and beat them. So it's weird.
Yeah, the Vikings just have to get back to what they do best, and
run the ball.
Yeah, and they have a talented wide receiver and Justin Jefferson.
Two talented wide receivers.
Well, yeah, Adam Thielen, but the rookie Justin Jefferson's really bust onto the scene.
Oh yeah, definitely. And here was the whole meme was let Russ cook, and that meme has kind of gone stale since Russell Wilson's kind of dropped out of the MVP conversation with his too many interceptions, and he hasn't played up to his potential.
We'll talk about that.
We'll get about that in a little bit and about what the. But now it's even though I don't think he can win it, he can't win it, but let Dalvin cook, man. He's
Yeah.
cooked. And I had to go against him this week, and every time he got a handoff, gave me a mini heart attack because I was like, oh, he's probably gonna bust this for like 50 yards because he's a god.
Yeah. So, just as we touched up on, we have the upset alert. Giants Seahawks. Now, the Giants lead the NFC least with Colt McCoy leading the Giants to the win over the Seahawks, and the Seahawks are now at 8-4. So Gabe, your thoughts on the game?
I think I texted you. You know, I was about to head off to work. I worked at I had to do a closing, so I was leaving somewhere around the beginning of the fourth quarter. And I texted you, I was like, Seahawks? What are you doing? Because I think it was like the Giants had just scored another touchdown and made it 17-5. And I was sitting there like, they are going to win this game. The Colt McCoy just played better than Russell MVP, Super Bowl MVP, MVP frontrunner, well, MVP candidate, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, Russell Wilson, just got outplayed by a guy who hasn't won a game as a starter since 2014. And, I mean, I know it wasn't Colt McCoy, like, playing out of his mind. It was the defense. And, you know, a lot of us didn't understand the Joe Judge hire and, you know, thought it was a horrible hire.
Yeah.
He's done a heck of a job. He's done a heck of a job bringing this team together. And he understands that this team is not, you know, right now their best case scenario is an 8-8 record, which even now seems like a long shot with their schedule. But you know, they're getting the results they need to win this division, and they still lead over another team that we will talk about too. A special little team down there in Washington. But yeah, they Seahawks need to get it together, man. There is no more Russell cooking. Russell is burning some meals, and it's not looking good in the kitchen down there in Seattle.
Yeah. I'll be here for the night, don't have to think twice. I'll be oh so nice, I have to think twice. I'll be here for the night, don't have to think twice. I'll be oh so nice, I have to think twice. Yeah. I'll be here for the night. Travel far, moving with the seasons, go to Panama, then I'll do a beats. It didn't take that long, had no time for weeping. Fingernails like claws on my clothes, you keeping. Go store your bag, think it had a reason. Can't remember shit, but I got a feeling. Play all my songs on a blown out speaker, did we work it up? Can't remember either. Running in circles, not feeling okay. Act like imposters, we playing all day. Last night we talked all about holidays. One day we'll get all this, then get away. Tonight, don't have to think twice. I'll be oh so nice, I have to think twice. I'll be here for the night, don't have to think twice. I'll be oh so nice.